Hello, and welcome to the Regrettable Century. It is all of us together again. It's been a while. It's good to see you guys.
Together again.
Is that a song?
You don't know that song?
It is now, because the drum beat goes like this.
It's kind of like McConaughey so early in the morning.
Crossover blast beat with Ben singing. No, what song is it? I'm curious now.
I don't remember. I'll have to look it up.
Okay, never mind.
So we're off to a good start.
Yeah, we're definitely off to a good start.
That's just like our ideological moment. I don't remember where it came from.
Okay, so we're here to talk about political violence in the United States. Obviously, it's only been a few days, and the entire country is still arguing with each other and having wildly speculative thoughts and trying super hard to figure out reasons why somebody shot Charlie Kirk. And I don't think I really need to update on anyone on what actually happened, but he was doing what he normally does, which is go to campuses and engage in, debates. That's the format, is to call people up from the crowd and talk to them. And he got shot. And it was a pretty gruesome thing to see. I didn't particularly enjoy it.
I wish I had.
As much as I dislike Charlie Kirk and think that running your mouth off like that is bound to get you some people that hate you and maybe even some people that might kill you. It's definitely not something that I appreciated. But I don't know. That's not what we're here to specifically talk about. I don't want to tone police anyone's reactions to what happened or say what the proper reaction should be.
Without policing anyone, I will just say that I was kind of sick in my gut for a whole day. I had to go to the gym to work some stuff out, because I was just not in a good place after that. I was trying to put together an IKEA shelf when I was watching all this stuff, and I put it together wrong.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's destroying your IKEA productivity.
So I don't want to tone police anyone, but I do want to say, I've said this in a couple other places, but I want to say this here as well. Talking about these things needs to be, we need to consider the ways in which we come off. We should just consider that it doesn't matter if you're joking, because of course you're joking, because you're not insane. But it doesn't matter if you are joking. Unless you were having a conversation in person with someone you know, and you don't have your phones in your pocket, and you're not near a Wi-Fi router or something of the kind like that, then the answer is yes, there are feds in the chat. Because I've been amazed at just how.
Oh yeah, dude! People have been saying some fucking wild shit. Yeah. And they're starting to put together watch lists already of people who have been joking about it. There's a new McCarthyism for people who laughed at jokes about Charlie Kirk, and
exactly,
it's official. Pete Hegseth has ordered the Department of Defense to start looking into people in the military that have been either happy about it or making jokes about it. They want to deny people passports if they're
they're starting with the foreign-born people.
Yeah,
because that's the easiest target.
Mm-hmm. So there should always be a heightened security culture in the United States, but especially in this sort of, a technologically advanced age, I guess, for the lack of a better term. Technologically dystopic age. How about that? Where we're listened to constantly. I said this elsewhere. It's you should always just assume that you're going to get put on a list if you make jokes about stuff like this or you advocate stuff like this. And someone else said, yeah, but if you're the kind of person that's going to laugh about stuff like this anyway, then you're already probably on a list. And that's actually a fair point.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
Everyone who identifies as a leftist is probably on a list, but it's what they're doing is the Reichstag thing is a little bit big and sloppy to reference, but everything's kind of ambling towards something more acute. So
constantly.
It's not this general sort of round up all the left for being the left. It's getting more and more pointed.
Sure.
And you're hearing people from Congress. You're hearing people from the state speaking to this, and everyone pretends like history repeats itself in the exact same way. Like these idiots are going to keep doing the same exact thing over and over again, and they're not going to figure out a way to do something a little bit newer, better, fashier, whatever you want to say. And listen to your own rhetoric, left. You've been decrying the fascist state in the U.S. Why are you suddenly sort of forgetting about what you've been saying this whole time?
Yeah,
it's also, it's also the case, and this is just speaking for me. And I don't want to like tone police anybody, but I do want to say it. I feel what you were saying before, Ben, about feeling sick. Like, I also don't think that Charlie Kirk was a guy who said things I like. Whatever, I don't like his role, and he was even sometimes more than just disagreeable. It's like pretty vile. It still hurts to have seen him bleed out in front of his wife and his children. That just sucks. And I know that some people will say like, and have said like, yeah, well, that happens in Gaza every day. And so I was like, yes, that also hurts.
I don't know what that even has to do with anything.
Yeah, dude, that's like some real fucking psychopath shit right there. Like, hey, if you are not desensitized to violence at this point by having seen the carnage of Gaza, then you're a racist or something like that. I've literally seen that kind of stuff. The only people who thought that it was gruesome to see Charlie Kirk bleed out in front of his kids are people who don't care about the violence in Gaza. It's like, no, I care about that also. I've broken down in tears, like thinking about my daughter in those situations of watching these little kids being pulled out of the rubble. It's something that really deeply affects me, and I don't think that I could possibly be more against what's going on in Gaza. Also, I don't like to see other murders.
Yeah.
I mean, even if I do think that like some people deserve to die, some people sure deserve to die. I don't want to see their murders. Yeah. And honestly, I would feel bad for their kids also. Seriously.
Of course. Well, there's a net dehumanization effect. So,
sure.
Okay, obviously they're dehumanizing Charlie Kirk. Also, they're dehumanizing his daughter. They're dehumanizing his wife. They're dehumanizing all the people there that witnessed this, that experienced this trauma. And all the people like us who watched it and experienced some gross feeling, which is human. And why are you trying to sort of level that in order to make some kind of hackneyed point about hackneyed, dare I say, third worldist point that kind of removes all context from the discussion, as though an assassination in Utah, we have some vestige of civil society. Granted, I think Charlie Kirk was damaging that civil society. I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely.
As others have pointed out, he was not a champion of free speech.
No, he reaped what he sowed. Certainly, I definitely agree with that.
Chickens came home to roost. No question.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you don't have to like extol the virtues of this man in order to not also celebrate his death.
I'm on the radical empathy side with Hassan Piker. I think that is speaking back to what the point you were beginning to make, Jason, about how we come across, which is a question of strategy as well as morality. Something I wrote in response to someone who was not joking, but was arguing stupidly on a, not our Discord, but in another online platform, that this is like a viable strategy, a viable project for the left, that people should take up this, which I found insane. First of all, I said, I don't doubt you're being earnest, but you could not, like, this could not be a better script for an agent provocateur, first off.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
That's
what are you doing?
Right.
We've even learned that one of the some of the evidence the FBI pieced together were comments the shooter made on Discord. So like, that's why all these leftists are scrubbing their footprint as though you could do that.
Yeah, that's not possible.
Anyway,
whatever you say is there forever.
The thing that I was trying to say is good rules of thumb for political discourse are to be found in questions like, and this is hearkening back to Kevin's sort of golden rule, right? About being normal. What do I sound like to a normal person? And who do I want on my team? And with regard to the left in the real world, how big is my actual team? And these are things that I was like, okay, I guess they never thought about this, where it doesn't matter, or they have a completely different thing in mind, like Baader-Meinhof complex.
I've got a lot of thoughts. I think Ben, that those are the golden rule sort of, keystones that we should think about whenever we're engaging these sorts of pieces of discourse. Toward the question of how do I sound to normal people, I don't think that we should undersell how much it is normal for normal people to just accept political violence as a fact of the world that does not really bother them.
Sure.
I think that there is at least a good chunk of normal people who would not bat an eye at the concept of reveling in political violence, being enacted against one's enemies, one's opponents. I think it's also the case that a lot of people in American society and Western countries regard the everyday political violence being enacted against Gazans and Yemenis and whoever else is the subject of conversation as being enacted against some other who's on the outside who doesn't come into the circle of concern for human empathy. And then whenever they see it being enacted on somebody who is within their circle of human empathy, a prominent white man who's fairly well-to-do within and comfortable in American society and rubbing elbows with the political elites of this country, apparently was played a significant role in the selection of J.D. Vance and other staffing decisions within the Trump 2 administration. So, he's a very well-connected political individual, and seeing violence being enacted against him makes people themselves feel suddenly vulnerable. And I think we can critique that fact as one of being a product of imperialism and racism.
Yes.
Without attacking people's sense of humanity in themselves, right? And I think this is the point that you're making. So this is the tweet that I've seen shared around on major socialist accounts or whatever, left-wing accounts. It's a tweet from Caitlin Johnston, and I've seen little clips and videos of various different people making variations on the exact same point. It's what you were saying, Chris. It's this tweet. People saying how gruesome they find the Charlie Kirk video are inadvertently confessing that they haven't been watching the footage coming out of Gaza for the last 2 years. I've seen worse shit today, and I haven't finished my morning coffee. So, one thing I want to say is that is probably true for a lot of the people. I've seen, I follow a handful, a number of like just generic accounts that don't follow politics, and a handful of right-wing accounts and that sort of thing. And I imagine, and I've seen some reactions from people posting being like horrified at the thing that they just saw, and then responding to the people in the comments being like, "Oh, I didn't realize that people actually really didn't like Charlie Kirk because he said and did bad things." Right. And they had never, they just don't, these things that happen to others are outside of the circle of human concern to them. And that is something that we can look at and criticize. But on the other hand, bragging about how desensitized you are to watching a person's neck being blown out by a bullet in front of your face is literally psychopathic.
Yes.
This is, and maybe I am tone policing here, and I don't know, I'm not trying to throw anybody in jail for saying something wrong, but this is not virtuous behavior. I'm going to set aside politics or political strategy for the second, and I'm going to say that this is not indicative of being a good human. You should fight and struggle against the horrific world we live in to retain whatever strings of your humanity you possibly can until the day that you die.
Right. So
that's very
what
well
we're
put.
talking about is selective empathy, right? And it's very much a part of in-group, out-group behavior. But whenever it happens on individuals that are unable, whenever it happens with individuals that are, along with many other sort of markers, it's considered a psychopathic trait, right? It's considered or other borderline personality disorders often have a problem with selective empathy.
Yeah.
It's not, generally psychopaths aren't just complete like Dexter. They're completely devoid of feeling for anyone ever. And they have to pretend it to fake it. That's kind of just like a popular depictions of psychopathy. Psychopaths can express selective empathy. So like, yeah, I'm not saying that everyone who displays selective empathy is a psychopath. Like, selective empathy is something that like it's pretty natural for humans to fall into, but it's also sort of something that we should struggle against, right? We should, as revolutionaries, we believe that violence may be necessary. We should also try to temper the violence that we think is necessary with a radical empathy, so that we don't condone of the application of violence unnecessarily or excessively. And I'm not saying right now that I think that I feel really bad for Charlie Kirk. I actually don't. I feel nothing for Charlie Kirk. I actually do feel bad for his children, though. I really do. I feel bad for his children. And I think that might just be like dad mode kicking in here, because like the first thing I thought about, like whenever I heard that his kids were present and saw it, was I thought about my daughter seeing that happen to me. So like, honestly, I think that Charlie Kirk certainly received what he put out there. That's what happened. And as much as I don't think that it should have happened, like I'm really not for ramping up the American years of lead and going after every single political pundit that has made the world a worse place. I'm not for that at all. I think that that's an entirely different conversation, but I think it's one that we'll get into. As much as I think that like these people might deserve the things that happen to them, I'm not like for it happening. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that's kind of even like with regard to what you were saying, Kevin. Like, I think that's well said, and it's worth considering. But also, I don't think that is an excuse for you. I don't think that we should lean into celebrating this. Like, I think that no matter who you are, making this a cause, a point of a reason to celebrate is just not a good look. Because A, it's not a good look, and B, I don't think it's a good thing. I do think it does matter that you, at most, express, like I said, the kind of indifference of talking about chickens coming home to roost.
Sure.
But I also think that, I want to join Ben and say I want to encourage more of a conscious, universal empathy, and use this as a moment to express that yes, that's tragic. What happens in Gaza is tragic. What happens to good people everywhere and also bad people everywhere is tragic. And so what I want to do is to be a part of the reshaping of the world in such a way as to make this kind of stuff instead of more common, less common.
Yeah. So there's a number of threads I want to pull at that Kevin has, and Chris and Jason, you've all introduced. So I just want to say that, like empathy, virtue is not really possible selectively. It's not something we can apply here and not there. I don't know what it means that I can see fully the degradation and dehumanization and utter sadism of what the IDF is doing to children, and not see the fallout from the assassination of Kirk for his daughter, for instance. I'm not really sure how to compartmentalize those realities. That kind of messes with my brain to even try and go there. As far as the circle of human concern, what you're sort of fleshing out has a direct mirror in the sort of misapplied false Catholic social teaching that Vance tried to promote, in which like it directly mirrors what the right has been putting out, which is that we can't see the humanity of Gaza or of immigrants because it's outside of our natural purview. But there's nothing natural about this purview. It is also a construction of the media. So what these people that we're immediately relegating to beyond the pale, because we're not just doing that with Kirk, we're doing that with his audience, which is vast. We're doing it preemptively to a vast portion of the entire country writ large. And we're basically saying killing fascists, quote unquote, is objectively good. Like as a trans-historical ethos. It does, nothing else matters. It's like I'm literally quoting what I've read from other people online. And I want to quote, I won't mention who, but a prominent comrade online was responding to this. Really liked what he said. He says, violence is not a univocal concept where all violence is the same everywhere and accomplishes the same ends. Like, the way I was thinking of it is that people are using fascism, in quotes, and violence, in quotes, as like some kind of arithmetic they're like trans-historical inputs, which flies in these are people that are presumably Marxist, and this flies in the face of any materialist analysis.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like it's just like a game of Pong, as though these things have meaning throughout time. It forgets, that we live in a society, one that we'll get into is increasingly ideologically porous. So people that are on the far right one day are on the far left the next. And so that includes the audience that was there, that witnessed this horrific event. That includes people that are right-wing media figures. It's just all much more complex. And I just see these sort of, I guess I'm policing, but I find it idiotic. I find the celebration of this kind of thing truly idiotic, strategically and in all sorts of other ways. I find it to be like historically blinded and not helping us in any way to build the movement we need, which includes people that are fans of Charlie Kirk. I just want to remind our listeners.
That's true. That is actually true. Well, I think there might be, so what one can imagine is a revolutionary moment when the royal family is captured and executed, and some section of their coterie or whatever is executed with them or something like that, and the crowd erupts with joy. I think something like that situation is one where a rightful where you can see the enjoyment of another's death as being rightful is encapsulated in a moment of political victory, where you have accomplished some decimation of the old order and the new order arising in its place, and it's sort of symbolized in the death of these particular individuals. That is a different thing from a useless, totally useless random assassination that doesn't actually different. accomplish anything. Now, honestly, when I first saw this and heard about it, I was a bit more. I was thinking about it as being a bit more useless, because all I really knew about Kirk was he was just some goofball, mostly mainstream Republican who, social media sort of talking head who didn't really have his hands on the lever of power, and it just seemed like somebody was lashing out against the spectacle itself and not even at somebody who had their hands on the levers of power. Now, since his assassination, I have learned that he was actually a lot more embedded within the official, ranks of the executive branch of the United States government than I realized he was. And he actually did have some influence on personnel decisions and had influence on, like I said earlier, J.D. Vance.
Well, Kevin, they
being selected as a vice president, but
his propaganda. Just quickly, his propaganda, reach was considered so important. That's why he was not invited into the cabinet. So,
well, yes, yeah, no, exactly. That's why his connection into that's why his connection to power was in the back room, behind closed doors, not out in the open. He wasn't officially a part of the cabinet or anything like that, was because he had proven himself to be a uniquely useful figure in organizing the young right-wing vote. And whatever, I kind of sort of plowing through all of that as a sort of an aside to say that I realized after the fact, I've only come to realize now that he actually was, I think he could and should be regarded as, if one were engaged in open warfare with the existing political regime, I think he should be regarded as a valid, legitimate military target. That said, we are not in that situation.
We are not.
It does not appear that the assassin was regarded himself as being in that situation, and this was literally just more spectacle. Just more spectacle.
Right. So something a point that I want to make is like, if killing quote unquote fascists is just a universal good, does that mean that that's what we're ready for, to scale this outward? Like the left is ready to start killing the fascists, and we're gonna like hold up our end. We're gonna come together as in a structured military organization, and going to do battle with the fascists with our, giant institutions behind us. Is that what's being called for now? Is the unified socialist parties, which number in the millions, those are going to be behind us whenever we start this fucking military campaign against the fascists? Or are you just talking about shooting individuals every once in a while just so you can fucking post some mean shit on the internet and feel like a fucking radical, while the people that have all the guns start, retaliating?
Start collecting our data and information and quote unquote our celebratory good cheer.
People with a monopoly on fucking violence start picking out who they're going after next. When
you think about like in the American context, we think about like what we call the days of rage. Think about like the Weathermen, which was a very small group committing acts of political terrorism. Even that happens within a broader context of an overall social ferment. And it's actually the frustration with the slow pace of the broad nebulous reform attitude, the Overton window strategy, which has been failing for always. But it's frustration with that made some of the existing protesters turn to a strategy which relied on networks and had an ideological underpinning and situated itself within a context of both the radicalization on the streets and in the context of, and they thought this was very important, within the context of the global revolutionary wave. They said, bring the war home, like they were talking about Vietnam. And that was also just happens to not have been, I'm not a proponent of that, but that's like so much more advanced on every front than this moment in history.
But I was thinking about this. We'll get into like strategy of tension and so forth. But and maybe it's a good time for you to define that. But what I've been thinking is that strategy of tension, a lot of the most purely online, adventurist, embracing leftists are courting something like that. They're courting a strategy of tension from the structures of power, from the right, because they want things to get incredibly bad, because they believe the worse things get, the closer we'll come to some kind of, I guess, miraculous, spontaneous resistance. That's what it will take to rouse the population to see the truth of the way. And that's just like a fucking comic book, like a bad one. Like, that's not
it also happens to be, I think, extraordinarily generous of you to even call it that, because I don't think that's even what it is. It's so much less than a hope for a spontaneous coming to Jesus moment on the part of the masses. It's actually just the case that when a figure who is, let's just call him detestable, gets taken out by anybody for any reason, random people, various individuals say, haha, good, fuck him, that's it. It's so much less than a strategy for a hoped for eventual spontaneous revival of a revolutionary sentiment. It's because it's not even the case that these people are engaged in something similar. What is the strategy? The strategy is hopefully somebody will randomly decide to commit an act of violence against someone I don't like. That's what the strategy is to hope as an individual.
Yeah. That's what we need.
Yeah, it's like watching a football game. They cheer like spectators of sports. They don't actually have any stake in what's going on. And I say this as a person who acts like I've got a major stake in what's going on whenever I watch sports. They don't have any stake in what's going on. They just want to see bad things happen to people that they don't like. And that's sort of universal for Americans in politics, I think. Like, a lot of people voted for Trump just because they wanted to see bad things happen to people they didn't like. Yeah. And whenever bad things start happening to people the Democrats don't like, they're happy about it in the same way that Republicans are, as spectators. A majority of human beings that are involved in politics are involved only as spectators.
Yeah.
And that goes for many radical leftists, because I think that a lot of leftists still think that posting is politics. And that they're doing work by like posting their infographics and by like arguing against fascism with their uncle on Facebook or whatever.
Right. So that's why this feels like
right
victory to them. Is it's a win in the discourse.
We did it.
And so this is a thing that,
like when Margaret Thatcher died, or when whenever rich, powerful people die, like in the arms of their loved ones after living a full, fulfilling life and literally getting everything that they have ever fucking wanted. People are like, haha, yeah, there goes another fascist. Like, what? Their life cycle came to an end after being successful at everything? How was that a fucking win for anybody?
When Kissinger
That's not what happened with Charlie Kirk. But, yeah. Kissinger dies at the age of 413 after having lived off the adrenochrome from babies for the next couple centuries.
Yeah. I don't even. I was interrupting you guys, and now I don't even remember what I was going to interrupt to say.
I interrupted your interruption, so it didn't work.
Well, no, I remember what I was going to say. So, what you were saying, Chris, about so this presumes what I was saying earlier presumes a strategy. There is no strategy, as we'll see when we talk about the quote unquote ideology of this assassin. Okay.
Yeah.
What I was thinking was, okay. If there were an actual strategy behind some actual adventurist campaign, a la the sort of anarchist campaign in the early, late 19th century, early 20th century, there would, of course, there was no internet then, but they wouldn't exactly be like leaving a trace, saying, here's what we should do on the forums of the day. But in fact, when I was thinking that is exactly what these people are doing, not the left, but this sort of porous, post-ideological video game ideology that this assassin's coming from, he left traces. They are becoming, quote unquote, radicalized, whatever that means. It's beyond politics, the radicalization.
Sure.
They're becoming radicalized on these diffuse, nihilistic, online, post-ideological forums in which they're playing video games, simulating murdering people, learning anti-fascist slogans in a deeply ironic sense to the point where they inscribe it on their bullet casings, and you're like, oh, it's an anti-fascist. Or was it? It's now Groyper and anti-fascist are like fused in this weird community. It's like nothing means anything. They're all floating signifiers, echoing histories in which years of lead had some meaning.
I see it put out there that this guy is a acolyte of Nick Fuentes and is thus a neo-Nazi. And I would like to kind of just step back from trying to ascribe any kind of ideology to this kid at all. I think that's a mistake. And I know that I'm still friends with like a lot of people who I think have deplorable political ideas, and I have them in my family, and I've been seeing a lot of stuff on my feeds recently, just people jumping at the chance to say, see, he's in the Salt Lake DSA, which he's not. I don't know where anyone is getting this from. But they're trying to paint him as having been radicalized recently by the Salt Lake DSA, and the reason that he used these anti-fascist slogans is because he's Antifa. And then, of course, there's the other end, which is like, oh, see, he pays attention to Nick Fuentes. He's posted on forums or whatever that, like, you know, Nick Fuentes' like fans are in, and that's why he uses these ironic shit poster sort of, you know, online uses ironic shit poster online jargon, and actually hated Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk wasn't right wing enough. And I said, I actually think that it's way less simple and easy to understand than any of that, because as it comes out now, it's just in like Fox posted this, and it may or may not be true. I think Kevin, you sent it to the group chat. Apparently lived with a transgender person.
Yeah, this is being reported that as of today, as of this recording, things may be changing, but this is being reported by mainstream news sources that officials have confirmed that he is living with his romantic partner, who is a transgender woman. And the way it's being reported by the Republican governor is by misgendering his the partner, but they're also saying that the partner is fully cooperating with the investigation, etc. Meanwhile, also saying that the shooter Robinson is not cooperating at all.
Yeah. So I mean, that right there, that automatically, like, in a lot of people's minds, sets off something. Oh, maybe he was a leftist. It's like, that is, if you haven't really paid any attention to Nick Fuentes, who like did videos where he went on dates with cat boys. You know, I don't know if you guys remember that from a couple of years ago. And then he has also like made all these posts about how like women suck, and maybe like, you know, real American patriots should date transgender women instead. You know, and it's just like so ideologically incoherent, right?
Yeah.
That to say that this person is a right winger just still doesn't make any sense. He also quoted some furry, like there's like some weird furry stuff that he wrote on and I don't know if you guys know anything about there's like neo-Nazi furry movement, and then there's of course the anti-fascist furry movement, and then so this post-irony, like post-meaning sort of engagement that these incredibly online young people have, it completely muddies the waters and makes everything ideologically completely just incoherent. So I think that neither left nor right can be happy when we find out what the ideology of the shooter was, because I don't think that there was one outside of like just being a troll and playing video games, and you know,
it's a new ideology.
Even the anti-fascist references are actually just references to a video game.
Everything is
from Helldivers.
So it's not like it's not even like he was saying this is because of Charlie Kirk's fascism. He was just saying, I like a video game.
Maybe. And honestly, we don't really know.
That's right. Maybe.
And I didn't we specifically said we didn't want to spend too much time talking about this thing, and we've kind of spent a lot of time doing that. So
what I want to say about it, and we can close it, but I do think we're mapping what this horrific incident has showcased is, back to Kevin's point, the utter spectacle of the way we process everything. Like, okay, the way that we've been following, the bullet casings, and then the guy's dad was former law enforcement. Okay, we're back to the right side of things with strange.
No, that's been disproven. He's not.
Oh, he's not. But anyway, the way that we go from right to left, speculation, as though this one or the other, wherever we happen to land finally, will help us all understand how to process this collectively and lay the blame. That is its own bubble. That's like an alternative reality that we're all invested in, that the media leads us to. And we're missing the reality that we're past all that. The stability of left and right is long gone. We're dealing with a new thing where irony is the new earnestness. I don't know.
It's almost like that people should read the Angela Nagel book.
I don't.
Kill All Normies.
Kill All Normies? Okay, so now you're going to get called Red Brown for saying that. But no, I mean, honestly, that book really kind of did help me understand what the hell was up with all of these weird sort of post-ironic subcultures. And I actually knew some people that were.
Should adopt Angela Nagel's philosophy. I'm just saying that book is worth reading.
And honestly, if there was something better out there, I would read it. I don't know if anything better. I think that the problem that people generally tend to have with that book is that it kind of blames wokeness for the fact that people are being driven into radical online spaces. And, that's something that they really don't like to try to wrap their minds around. And I don't think it's completely wrong. I don't think it's the main reason. I don't think it's completely wrong to think that just absolutely toxic the culture of online leftism when that book came out in 2016 or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's wrong to say that leftists have driven people into fucking becoming reactionaries. If you think that that's not the case, then you don't know what you're talking about. You're fucking lying.
Have you guys seen the new Ari Aster film Eddington?
No.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
It's exactly actually this. Yeah. This pipeline between which is again kind of a game of Pong until it left and right are meaningless. It kind of shows how people are being radicalized in one direction and then the other, but it's all spectacle driven. Right?
Yes.
It ceases to hold any salience.
So speaking of the point of reference we keep making, the years of lead and the strategy of tension and the days of rage and these historical precedents that people are scrambling for to find some analog, it's probably worth us actually just going through that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, honestly, my first thought when I saw this is this is some domestic gladio shit going on. And I joked around about that, but honestly, I would not be the least bit surprised if this actually was something like that. Some sort of part of a strategy of tension to keep Americans at each other's fucking throats and calling for the strong hand of a stabilizing authority. That's in the interests of both parties. I mean, I'm not saying that's what it was, but I've been, I don't know, I guess in sort of as I've gotten older and as I've found that the efforts of the left to try to affect politics at all is constantly neutered by the dumbest fucking infighting and the just most asinine throwing away of opportunities. I generally think are we being COINTELPRO'd here? Are we being Operation Chaos here? And then I think about it, I'm well, it's possible. It's possible that we are. I don't ever want to say that actually the FBI and CIA are good now, and they don't fucking do anything like that. They don't try to subvert democracy in the United States. That would be absolutely insane. But I don't want to live as though I constantly think that everything is a CIA or FBI operation to destabilize us. But yeah, that's exactly where my mind first went, was like, oh, this is like strategy of tension shit. This is like American Gladio. They're killing off people in order to keep us at each other's throats. That's where my mind first went.
Just to amplify the conspiranoid thinking is, I don't think we should discount the existence of private sector Gladio style shit, where private interests never have to disclose anything to anyone. So there's no FOIA requests that will subsequently disclose it and prove that this has happened. Yeah. The private interests who have lots of money to throw at just dumb bullshit, and they can just throw empty, Elon Musk might be throwing money at, hey, I'm going to pay this PR firm to just cause problems among left-wing organizations, No one will ever know it.
Well, the left is the party of murder, so whatever you got to do.
And even if it's not just, even zooming out from the idea of left-wing organizations, just the population in general, who we want to surveil, and who we use AI to deny their claims constantly, and we can use that for all kinds of reasons. Why would we not also want them to? Why would we not want this if this just happens to be in our interest, right? And if we could make it happen, maybe we should. So, I'm not saying that we should entertain this, say that's what it is, but we should not say that's what it's not. We don't know, and that's kind of the point.
It very well may be that these weird, disaffected young men who are being radicalized in forums on the internet to lash out with no particular goal and no particular ideology. It's just a symptom of the sickness that plagues our society, the rot at the soul of our culture that comes from being so disaggregated and kept away from each other, both in our own little bubbles on the internet and our own little bubbles physically as well, as we sort of decouple from other human beings at a more and more alarming rate. That's probably that's the Occam's razor here. What's causing this is oh yes, that would be the simplest explanation, but it does not. I do not shrink back from the idea that these people are being manipulated by nefarious actors, be they governmental or not, to cause chaos with the specific purpose of just keeping things chaotic for no other reason. I'm not saying that's what I think happened here at all, but I definitely know that. How many times have we seen the FBI catch a mass shooter just as they were about to cause a mass shooting? It's you don't think that every once in a while someone slips through the cracks and they actually do it, and then the FBI just kind of sweep things under the rug and said, "Oops, yeah, we didn't know anything about that one."
Yeah, I think that's just reasonable. We know that that's what they do when it comes to bomb threats.
Sure.
So why wouldn't we at least
they create threats and then they solve them? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if every once in a while they don't solve them?
Yeah. What if every once in a while they don't solve them? That's right.
Yeah. And we know that they did that with Operation Chaos. They brought people over that ran the Operation Phoenix program in Vietnam that tortured people, assassinated people, and they used them to cause chaos among left-wing activist groups in the United States in the 1960s and 70s, or in the 70s specifically. We know that they did that. That's been declassified. We know that the FBI did COINTELPRO stuff, infiltrating organizations, going so far as to stoke violence up between organizations so that people actually killed each other over stuff that the FBI and I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say that the FBI is directly responsible for the assassination of Martin Luther King and of Malcolm X. I don't think that there's too many people that would disagree with that unless they were very, very vested in maintaining the narrative that the United States' government is good and doesn't do bad things.
Well, for a long time we've known about Fred Hampton, which is
for sure,
page news.
Anyway, so all of that being said, the strategy of tension was specifically in Italy in the 1970s, during what is called the Years of Lead. You had left-wing groups and right-wing groups escalating violence against one another, going so far as to kidnap and kill parliamentary members and then bombing a train station and stuff like that. And what we've come to learn in the years since all that stuff was happening is that the Italian government was actually encouraging this instability in what was called a strategy of tension. And there have been several authors or historians who have found evidence that tied that to Operation Gladio that was run by NATO and the CIA, where right-wing groups were given caches of weapons and, given targets, and even the Milan train bombing. I think that I'm not sure if this is universally accepted, but there's lots of evidence out there that was, government-related groups in Italy acting on behalf of the CIA and the Gladio network that set off the Milan train bomb in order to discredit the communists. So, that's what we mean when we say strategy of tension. And now, whether or not in the United States right now there are the CIA is going around and planting bombs and assassinating people, or whether or not it is a tactic on behalf of the media and of the people who work on behalf of the CIA in media, and who we know for a fact that lots of people are tied directly to intelligence agency in the United States and plant stories in the media on a regular basis. Operation Blackbird revealed that to all of us. Why wouldn't they stoke up fear constantly? Because first of all, we don't even need nefarious actors for media outlets to want to do this. Stoking fear sells subscriptions, right?
Yeah.
So whether or not it's government entities, or if it's just because of the way that the market pushes the media to respond, it does seem like there is sort of a strategy of tension being played out in the United States right now. And that is coupled with a massive rise in political violence.
Yeah, I think that's I just think that's the most obvious thing here. This moment, this era, is not like the 70s in the sense that we do not have the same context, but it is probably like the 70s in the case in the sense that you just laid out. And I've heard it also described as being somewhat more akin to the years leading up to the Civil War, Bleeding Kansas and I forget his first name. Is it Elijah Lovejoy? When people were getting lynched for being abolitionists or whatever, but also, or people have make references to the assassination of Henry Frick by Alexander Berkman, or the American president that Donald Trump likes a lot, McKinley.
Yeah, William McKinley.
And that also happens within a context where there's the timber wars, and so political violence has this kind of recurring. It happens often in our history. I don't think that this time is like those, though, because those are ones in which people had some sense of either they were holding on to something, trying to preserve something, or they're trying to push forward to something new. They had some deeply held ideological commitments, some kind of sense of purpose and meaning.
Right.
I think that this era is probably the closest analogy is the 90s. And I'm not talking about Ruby Ridge in Oklahoma City. I'm talking about Columbine. I'm talking about the post Cold War, fully onset neoliberal, end of history, at the destruction of ideology. Nothing means anything. We're just talking about the way things have been for kind of a long time now. And if you think about just school shootings, this is not even new. This is well underway as being there have been 56 school shootings this year so far.
Yeah.
Well, the ideological poles of attraction are, as we've been saying, increasingly unstable. I've been reading in my book club, we've been reading this sci-fi novel Dahlgren, which I don't know that I'll recommend, but one of the things that is occurring is he's in this kind of post-apocalyptic city in the middle of the country, the protagonist, and he keeps waking up and things are in different locations. The geography is kind of shifting and unstable. And that's sort of like our ideological reality. Like the goalposts keep getting moved around. And so how could you have large parts of the body politic know what what to be aiming for, what to be moving against? Like everything's seemingly in a different place every day, every other day. And I just can't, just to call back to where we started off, like I can't help but, what do you think you're celebrating when you respond to these kinds of events? You're also celebrating what comes after. You're celebrating everything that this is building toward and that you're not prepared for. So
right.
It's
That's
just
my main point.
Yeah, just think about what the hell you're saying. Just think.
So I do think one good thing has come out of this is that everybody thinks that Israel did it, regardless of whether or not they did it. I don't think that's a bad thing. No, but honestly, like regardless of whether or not there is some sort of manipulation by, private entities or the government, I don't even think that is necessary for what is happening to be happening. I don't think. I think that they probably take advantage of that sometimes, but I think that whatever is happening right now would be happening regardless. That being said, looking at this Catholic school shooting that just happened. Yeah, that to me was profoundly disturbing in a number of different ways. Not the least of which was that the person that was doing it knew that they were about to do something absolutely disgusting and horrible and sort of reveled in the fact that that's what they were doing. Yeah. Right? There like we keep talking about, like completely devoid of ideology. I think the closest thing to ideological motivation that existed in this person's sort of like web of internet interactions would be like posting on an Order of Nine Angles forum, which is like a, neo-Nazi satanic accelerationist group that like tries to convince people just to do horrible shit for the sake of doing horrible shit. And, that's, that might just be tangential here. That person might just have been doing this stuff because they wanted to do horrible shit and were looking for, inspiration or like-minded people or whatever. But, that seems to be more the norm with these sort of things than an outlier. And for whatever reason, I guess it's because it was like so well documented. Like this person's mental illness was very publicly documented because they wrote lots of journals and had lots of forum posts and stuff like that for us to go through. That seemed to me to like bring everything into that, made it so very stark, like what's happening here. And I think that like when we look at these other people, they're also being radicalized towards just doing horrible acts for no reason in less obvious ways.
I think that this actually brings into picture the sort of the other side of why this can be seen as a net positive event.
Dialectical, Kevin.
Yes, I guess this is the dialectic playing out here, right? We've approached this from the perspective of the left trying being a good human, and the left trying to accomplish its goals, and all these sorts of things. And from that perspective, this was absolutely, unequivocally a negative thing. The flip side of this is every single time that there is a horrific, school shooting or whatever that happens, the thought that plays in my mind is, hey man, if you just hate yourself in your life and you want to go out in a blaze of violent glory, at least aim the gun at somebody who's a horrible piece of shit instead of at kids. And so, maybe, if this were, he did this instead of a mass shooting, I'll take it.
Oh, I haven't. That's a novel insight.
Huh. All right. Sure. I don't think that I would like to go on record saying that.
It's so funny because what I thought was that Kevin, what I thought you were saying was like you were going to make some kind of a case for the idea that freedom, as it becomes conscious of itself, works through reason in ways which even run counter to the sometimes the ideas that people have in mind when they act upon the world, and that the bearer of what you might call the will of history, or the bearer of divine providence, or whatever you want to call it, the movement of spirit throughout history, it works in mysterious ways. That's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah, that's probably a much more profound way of putting it, and to be properly Hegelian, that Satan is but a moment of God, and we can see,
yes.
We could perhaps with as the owl of Minerva spreads her wings at dusk, we can look back and see God acting in these. We can find God in the darkness, but it's hard to see that when we're not without the benefit of hindsight, and when we're in the middle of it all, all we're experiencing is the darkness itself.
Yeah, and either way, people are going to listen to this and they're going to be pissed.
Yeah,
they're like, it started out so humanely.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to like this no matter what. Like, first of all, say us having like this sort of, humanist interpretation of violence, moving into saying, yeah, I don't know, maybe this is some fucking Gladio shit too. No, that's actually the least likely explanation. The most likely explanation is just, I mean, we ran the gamut and hit all the points of the different ways to piss people off.
That was our outline, First, we have to piss off, the adventurous types who are purely online, and then we have to get in a little red-brown, and then we have to go Hegelian.
First we have to piss off all the people who are red. Then we have to piss off all the people who are brown. Then we have to piss off all the people who are red-brown, and then we have to piss off all the people who are atheists. No, we have to piss off all the people who are religious.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we're really heterodox,
Yeah.
Either that, or this is basically just us being like edgelords, right? Like this whole podcast is just a edgelord psyop to try to piss off as many people who are trying to listen to us for like to seriously listen to us to understand what we think.
Yeah. What is our position? We seem to be in intra-conflict with one another.
We seem to be in inter-conflict with the things that we said about 15 minutes earlier sometimes also,
Well, we're just enacting the new prevalent reality of ideological,
ideological confusion.
Yeah.
I'm just being Hegelian. I'm being dialectical.
I'm constantly at war with myself. What else I just thought about when I said piss off all the people who are brown? It's like, don't take that the wrong way. I meant brown and red brown.
Yeah. I don't know how much of any of this is making it into the episode, honestly.
All of it.
No, I think it's probably worth us like thinking about more of a political conclusion.
Well, that one, the foreign affairs article you shared with us, Our Own Worst Enemies. This is from Robert A. Pape from last December.
Lots of good data in there.
So much. Like, getting back to, we've been devoting a lot to spectacle and how shifty it is, but he did some real polling that suggests that a growing number of Americans from throughout the political spectrum support the use of force to either toward Congress, toward the population. It's this sort of comfort with violence against the other side is increasing throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of the point I wanted to try to make earlier about how, like, when you think about the Sons of Liberty and the tarring and feathering of loyalist, Tory figures, that's extremely violent, because people think about tarring and feathering like, oh, that's like annoying, or
he got sticky.
Yes, like, no, they're melting off the skin.
Yeah.
And the feathers. You die from tarring and feathering.
Yes,
it's just a very horrible way to die.
Yes.
Or like Bleeding Kansas and the raid on Harper's Ferry, and or if we're thinking about like I said, the Battle of Blair Mountain, the Timber Wars, the fact that there were like 110 members of the IWW who were just like lynched and their bodies just thrown in the Arizona desert in like 19 around World War I. Or we're talking about any of the things happening, in that era, especially with the rise of the Klan and the extraordinary amount of severe violence, racist violence, or the violence in defense. In every era they were talking about for our entire history, American politics has been simultaneously a matter of debate and decorum and whatever, and also of violence. And it's not necessarily the case that one happens when the other fails. And it's not even necessarily the case that one happens by one group and the other happens by the other group. So the case really should be that this era is probably not too much more violent than any of the previous ones. And yet it is distinct. It's marked by a distinction, which is that, in terms of culture and ideology, is that the previous eras were all marked by some kind of clear articulation of a view, whatever it was, by something that people wanted to achieve, and that they leaned upon each other to achieve. So they leaned upon each other in civic groups and political associations, and sometimes in vigilante justice or in mob violence or whatever. But this era is one in which it's marked by just a deep crisis of meaning.
Yeah.
That grows directly out of exactly. It just grows directly out of the atomization of social life. And I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, but it probably will grow more significant.
I want to very quickly read just some of the data from this study from PAPE. So PAPE is it University of Chicago? Yeah. Professor of Political Science and director of the U of Chicago Project on Security and Threats. And so he's got a wealth of resources to conduct really thorough studies and polling. And he says, according to a January 2024 survey conducted by my team along with NORC, which is a prominent polling organization with U of Chicago, over 15% of Americans, 12% of Democrats, 15% of independents, and 19% of Republicans agree that, quote, the use of force is justified to ensure members of Congress and other government officials do the right thing. In our more recent June survey, 10% of respondents, a number that extrapolates to 26 million American adults, agreed that the use of force is justified to prevent Donald Trump from being president. Over 30% of these people own guns. 20% think that when police are violently attacked, it is because they deserve it. Meanwhile, 7% of respondents, equating to 18 million American adults, support the use of force to restore Trump to the presidency. This group has even more dangerous capabilities. 50% own guns, and so on. And he's basically saying that it's likely to become that domestic political violence is likely to become more frequent, and that the American public is likely to become more tolerant. There's also like a big gulf between generations. Older people are less of this opinion than young people, like from our age and younger.
Yeah. I want to put a disclaimer in there that this article, while good, has the weakest fucking suggestions for solutions on how to overcome
Sure.
It's just like lame fucking liberal horseshit. You know, basically it's like, do all the shit that we did that got us here in the first place, but more.